I went camping in the Great Smoky Mountains about a month ago. I'm 34, a freelance graphic designer, and I needed a break from my busy life. I thought being alone in nature would clear my mind. The campground was quiet, surrounded by big trees and a flowing river. It felt peaceful, like I could finally relax. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I set up my tent and took a deep breath. The air was crisp, and the woods were silent. As night fell, I sat by the fire pit. I poked at the flames, trying to enjoy the dark, but I felt like someone was watching me. I thought maybe it was just my anxiety, but it wouldn't go away. Around midnight, I heard rustling outside my tent. My heart raced. I froze. Was it an animal or my mind? I peeked out, but all I saw were shadows between the trees. I blinked, and whatever it was vanished. I told myself it was just a deer. I tried to sleep, but the wind seemed to carry whispers. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt wrong. The next night, things got stranger. I found weird symbols carved into the trees around my campsite. I didn't notice them before. They looked like spirals made of sticks and branches. It creeped me out. I thought maybe other campers left them, but that just made me feel more uneasy. While I was gathering firewood that evening, I stumbled upon a circle of stones. They were arranged neatly, and in the center were wilted flowers and some ashes. I felt a chill run down my spine as I stared at it. My curiosity pulled me closer, even though I felt like I should run. I poked the flowers with a stick. They crumbled in my hand. Had someone done a ceremony here? I didn't know what to think. On my last night, I sat by the fire, feeling a knot in my stomach. The whispers came back, clearer this time. Help us, it echoed in the still night air. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it into the dark, but all I found was emptiness. Then I saw a figure again, just outside the light. My breath quickened. Hello? Is anyone there? I called out, but the night was silent. I turned back to my tent, heart pounding. The circle of stones popped into my mind, and I felt drawn to it again. I glanced back one more time. That's when I saw him. A man stood at the edge of the light, staring at me. I asked, "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. I turned on the flashlight, but he was gone. I didn't know what just happened. Were these things real, or was I losing my mind? I just knew I had to leave that campsite. The feelings of being watched haven't left me since then. Those nights are etched into my memory, and I can't shake the experience. I still wonder about the whispers and the figure that vanished. The Great Smoky Mountains hold secrets I'm not meant to understand. The drive home felt endless. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as I replayed what happened in my mind. I couldn't shake the unease from the camping trip. Every rustling leaf on the road made me jump. I should have felt relief, but instead, I felt a nagging dread. Once home, I tried to return to my routine. I opened my laptop, determined to forget about the trip. But I couldn't focus. The symbols on the trees haunted me. I pulled out my phone and searched for them. They looked similar to ancient markings used in rituals, but I couldn't find much. It left me with more questions. That night, I tried to sleep, but images of the figure kept flashing in my mind. His blank stare felt unnerving. I tossed and turned until I finally drifted off. Just as I closed my eyes, I heard that whisper again. Help us, it echoed like it was right next to me. I jolted awake in a panic, the shadows in my room swirled ominously. A cold sweat drenched my shirt. The following days were a blur. I kept seeing the man in my dreams. His face was always shrouded in darkness, like I could never truly see him. I missed the mountains, but the fear kept me from even thinking of returning. Then something unexpected happened. I received a message on my social media from an old friend. Doug and I used to go camping together, but we lost touch. The message read, "Hey. I just got back from camping in the Smokies. Did you know about the disappearances?" My heart raced. Disappearances? I quickly typed back, asking what he meant. Doug replied, "There have been reports. People say they've seen strange figures. Some have gone missing." I froze. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Were the whispers connected to the disappearances? I needed to know more. I decided to meet Doug the next day for coffee. He seemed genuinely concerned, and I figured he would have details I didn't. That night, I barely slept, uneasy about what revelations might come. The next morning, I arrived at the cafe early. I ordered coffee and fidgeted in my seat, watching the door. When Doug walked in, he looked tense. We exchanged awkward hellos as he sank into the chair across from me. "What did you find out?" I asked, hoping he would ease my growing anxiety. "I talked to some locals," he began, his voice low. "They said they're a group that performs rituals in the woods. They believe the mountains hold spirits, and they're trying to appease them." My heart was racing. "Have you heard the whispers?" He nodded, his expression serious. "Some have seen figures, too. They believe the spirits are warning them, or that the rituals have angered them." I was drawn in, but dread lurked beneath it all. I felt as if I was standing on the edge of something dark, about to fall. Doug leaned in closer, lowering his voice even more. "I think we should go back," he said suddenly. I felt a surge of fear mixed with curiosity. "What?" "Find out what's really going on. We need to see it for ourselves." I opened my mouth to protest, but the thought of the answers lurking in the dark made me hesitate. That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced down and froze. It was a photo from an unknown number. I didn't want to open it, but every part of me urged to see what it was. Then everything went dark. I jolted back to consciousness, my heart pounding in my chest. I blinked rapidly, trying to piece together what had just happened. The cafe felt suffocating, the air thick with anxiety. Doug had been talking, but now his voice faded into the background. My focus was locked on my phone. The screen was illuminated, showing that same photo. "What is it?" Doug asked, noticing my change in demeanor. I hesitated but finally tapped the message open. The image loaded slowly. It was a picture of a campfire, but it wasn't just any campfire. The flames danced wildly, illuminating symbols etched into the ground surrounding it, the same symbols I had seen on the trees. "Holy shit," I muttered. This was taken at the campsite. Doug leaned over, squinting at the screen. "Where did it come from?" "I don't know. It's from a number I don't recognize," I replied, feeling my pulse quicken. We exchanged worried looks. The realization hit me a warning, or perhaps a lure. I scrolled down to see if there was a message attached, but there was nothing. Just the photo, stark and haunting. "Should we go back?" Doug asked, his voice steady but a hint of uncertainty crept in. "I don't know," I said. "What if it's a trap? What if those missing people? Or what if it's real?" Doug interrupted. "What if we can help them?" I felt torn. A part of me wanted to dive headfirst into this mystery, to confront whatever shadow loomed over the woods. But another part of me urged caution. What if the whispers were warnings? "I can't shake the feeling that this is connected to the disappearances," I finally said. Doug nodded. "Then we need to find out. We should go today, while it's still light out." I thought about it. The sun was shining bright, but the shadows from the woods loomed large in my mind. "Okay," I reluctantly agreed. "But we need to be careful." We made our way back to my car, the decision hanging heavily between us. As we drove toward the Smokies, a sense of dread washed over me again. The mountains looked different in the daylight, alive, yet eerily silent. The road wound through trees, their branches reaching out like crooked fingers. As we approached the site, I felt a chill, like ice settling deep in my bones. My mind raced with anxious thoughts. What if we found something we weren't prepared for? When we finally parked, I hesitated. The campsite looked deserted, as if it had been abandoned long ago. The faint smell of smoke lingered in the air, an odd reminder of warmth that now felt cold and cruel. Stepping out of the car, I felt a prickling sensation at the back of my neck. "You getting anything?" Doug asked, scanning the surroundings. "Not yet," I replied, though I felt the weight of unseen eyes on us. I instinctively reached for my phone, prepared to document anything unusual. As we moved closer to the fire pit, I noticed something on the ground. An object half buried in the dirt. It glimmered in the sunlight. I knelt down, brushing away the soil. My breath caught in my throat as I uncovered a pendant, marked with the same symbols I had seen before. Just then, a rustling behind us made me spin around. I caught a glimpse of movement in the trees. I was certain I saw a figure cloaked in deep shadows, watching us. "Doug," I whispered, fear gripping my voice. But when I turned back, the figure was gone. All that remained was the sound of the wind cutting through the trees. We needed answers. But I had a feeling this was just the beginning, and whatever was in the woods with us wasn't finished yet. I couldn't shake the image of that figure from my mind. The thought of being watched made my skin crawl. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "We need to stick together," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Doug nodded, his brow furrowed. "Let us check out the area around the campsite. Maybe there are more clues." We started to scan the ground, working our way around the fire pit. I felt the pendant in my pocket, a cold weight against my thigh. I carefully studied the symbols carved into it, hoping for some kind of revelation. But they remained cryptic, taunting me with their unfamiliarity. "Hey, look at this," Doug called out, interrupting my thoughts. I hurried over to him. He was kneeling beside a cluster of bushes, parting the leaves to reveal a young tree with more of those same symbols etched into the bark. "What do you make of it?" he asked, running his fingers over the carvings. "It feels like a warning," I replied. "Like someone marked this place for a reason." Doug glanced around, his eyes heavy with unease. "We shouldn't be here. This whole place feels off." I could feel the tension building between us. "What do you mean? You were the one pushing for us to come." He straightened up, brushing dirt off his knees. "Yeah, but now that we're actually here, I'm not so sure it was a good idea." As we continued to investigate, the air grew thicker. Shadows shifted in the tree line. I could feel something lurking just beyond my sight, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal itself. I caught sight of something shiny on the ground, and my curiosity pulled me over. It was a small, metallic object, a keychain, engraved with the name of a local missing person. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the name, it was someone I recognized. She had gone missing years ago during a camping trip. I quickly pulled out my phone, checking the news articles I had read. "Doug! Look at this!" I exclaimed, showing him the keychain. "This is insane," he replied, taking a step back. "What does it mean?" "I don't know," I admitted, holding the keychain tightly. "But we're connected to something bigger than we thought. These symbols, the pendant, and now this, they're all related." Before I could process the implications, a loud snap echoed through the trees. My heart raced as I looked around, searching for the cause. "Did that noise come from behind us? Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice shaky. Doug nodded, his face pale. "It sounded like it came from over there." He gestured towards the direction of the sound. "Let us go check it out," I suggested, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. We moved cautiously, stepping over roots and avoiding the fallen branches that littered the ground. I gripped the pendant in my pocket, and Doug clenched his flashlight. As we pushed deeper into the woods, the sun's rays became scarce, swallowed by the thick canopy above. That's when I saw it. A figure, barely visible between the trees. It stood completely still, just watching us. My breath caught in my throat. "Doug, do you see that?" I whispered, heart pounding. But before he could respond, the figure turned and darted deeper into the woods. We exchanged terrified looks, our shared fear unspoken. "What the hell was that?" Doug finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, but we need to find out," I replied, though every instinct screamed at me to run. The woods felt alive around us, shadows shifting with intention. There was no turning back now. Whatever was going on here, we were entangled in a web that demanded to be unraveled. I just hoped we wouldn't lose ourselves in the process. Doug and I stood still for a moment, letting our eyes adjust to the dim light. "Should we follow it?" he asked, glancing nervously at the dark path the figure had taken. I hesitated. What if it's dangerous? We don't know what we're getting into. But the thought of going back to the campsite felt even worse. I nodded. "Let us stick together and take it slow." We moved deeper into the woods, an uneasy silence wrapping around us. I kept my flashlight on the ground, illuminating the roots and branches that threatened to trip us. My heart raced more with each step, the weight of the keychain digging into my hand like a warning. Suddenly, I heard another sound shuffling, followed by a low, muffled whisper. I barely caught it, but my instincts kicked in. "Did you hear that?" I stopped in my tracks, leaning closer to Doug. He nodded, eyes wide. "Yeah, I think it came from over there." He pointed to a cluster of thick trees. Before I could respond, a rustling sound broke out from the same area. Panic surged through me. We should go back. But it was too late. The disturbance erupted into a full-on commotion. A blur dashed past us, something small and brown, an animal. Or was it something else? My pulse quickened as I tried to make sense of what I saw. Was that a deer? Doug speculated, squinting into the darkness. Not sure. It didn't look right. I felt the need to keep moving, to find whatever was making the noise. We edged forward, and as we approached the trees, the whispers grew clearer, almost like a chant. My stomach dropped. They didn't sound like any language I knew. I glanced at Doug, his expression mirroring my fear. "Maybe we should go back now," I insisted, but a part of me was drawn to the broken murmurs. Just then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A figure loomed behind the trees, and I could see it a bit clearer now. It was hunched, almost like it was crouched down, watching us. My breath caught. "Doug, do you see that?" I whispered again, my voice trembling. "Yes," he replied, barely above a whisper. "We need to leave. Now." I turned to grab his arm, but as I did, the figure stood up straight, revealing features I wished I hadn't seen. It was a man, thin, pale, with ragged clothes. His face was partially hidden, but his eyes glittered in the darkness like two dark holes, unfeeling. In a sudden jolt, he lunged forward, and I could hear faint words spilling from his lips, chanting something in that strange, haunting language. "Run!" I yelled, instinct forcing us into action. We stumbled back, sprinting through the woods as branches whipped against us. The sound of our footsteps echoed in my ears, mingling with the alien chanting that seemed to follow us. We burst into the clearing where our campsite was. Doug fell to his knees, gasping for breath. What the hell was that? I shook my head, still trying to process what had just happened. I think we should call for help. We're not safe here." And just as I was pulling out my phone, it died, no signal, no life. I looked at Doug, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. "We're going to have to spend the night here." It was then I noticed the trees surrounding us were marked, two symbols etched into the bark, glowing faintly under the dying light. "We're not alone," I whispered, the realization settling in. An overwhelming fear gripped me as the echo of chanting drifted back through the trees. I had no idea what waited for us next. The air felt thick around us as we tried to catch our breath. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, each beat a frantic reminder of what we had just escaped. Doug was staring at the glowing symbols on the trees, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Why are they glowing?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know," I admitted, scanning the campsite for anything that could help us. "We just need to keep an eye on those trees." As darkness enveloped us, I noticed the whispers had grown quieter, almost as if they were waiting. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking out there, watching us. "Maybe we should start a fire," Doug suggested. "It might help us feel safer." I nodded in agreement and rummaged through our supplies, quickly gathering the kindling and lighter. I flicked the lighter, and orange flames danced to life, illuminating the area. The light made me feel a little better, but my instincts told me it wasn't enough. "Do you think it was a person?" Doug asked, staring into the fire. "That thing we saw?" "Maybe. But it felt more otherworldly," I replied, my thoughts racing. "We should have never followed it." Just as I spoke, an abrupt gust of wind swept through the clearing, rattling the nearby trees. I glanced up, and to my horror, I saw movement at the edge of the woods. Shadows shifted, and then several figures stepped out from the darkness. "Doug!" I shouted, gripping the flashlight tightly. "Get behind me." But it was too late. There were at least 4 of them now, pale, hunched figures with the same dead, glittering eyes. They seemed to glide instead of walk, their bodies barely making a sound. My blood ran cold. "What do they want?" Doug whispered, his voice barely audible. I didn't have the answer. All I could think about was their chanting, the way it felt like an ancient song woven into the fabric of the night. One of the figures stepped closer, and in a moment of panic, I raised the flashlight, hoping to use it like a weapon. "Stay back!" I yelled, but the figure didn't react. Instead, it raised its arm, revealing a twisted hand. The sight churned my stomach, and I could hardly breathe. Doug grabbed my shoulder. "We need to run again. Now." "No." I protested, feeling the weight of the moment. What if they're trying to communicate? But just as I spoke, one of the figures let out a guttural sound, a mix of a growl and something like laughter. I had no time for second-guessing. "Okay, fine. Let us go," I shouted, spinning toward the path leading back to the woods. We bolted into the trees, branches scratching at us as we dashed deeper into the dark. I could feel the figures chasing us, just out of sight, and their chanting returned, rising and falling like a wave. After what felt like forever, we stumbled into another clearing. I could see the moonlight casting an eerie glow over a small pond. It made me pause, a part of me wanting to stop and catch my breath. What if they don't follow us here? Doug panted out behind me, but I could see that was wishful thinking. The chanting hadn't stopped. "Look!" I pointed to the water. "There's something floating." As I moved closer, I realized it was a wooden box, half submerged. Curiosity fought against my fear. I needed to know what it was, even as danger loomed just beyond the trees. I knelt down, reaching for it, when Doug suddenly grabbed my arm. "Don't. It might be a trap." That S when I saw it etched into the wood were the same symbols marking the trees back at our campsite. My heart sank. I had to find out what it meant, but I could feel something lurking behind us. The chanting grew louder, cascading around us. I looked back toward the woods, knowing we were running out of time. Whatever it was that followed us would soon be here. My hand hovered over the box, an instinct pulling me closer, but Doug's grip on my arm was a steady anchor. I could see the panic reflected in his eyes. "Let us just go," he urged, his voice shaky. The chanting had transformed into an overwhelming chorus, filling the air like a tangible force pressing down on us. No, I said, just above a whisper. I couldn't ignore the box. It felt significant. We need to check it out. Before I could reason with us both, the chanting turned into something sharp, a collective, horrifying wail that echoed through the trees. I felt the presence behind us intensify, awful and unyielding. We have to do this, I said, pulling my arm free. I dropped to my knees, splashing my hand into the cool water. The box felt heavy in the liquid, and I was surprised at how easy it was to pull it free. As I dragged it to the shore, my breath caught. The surface of the wood was slick, glistening like it was coated in some kind of oil. The symbols glowed faintly under the moonlight, mingling with the fear swelling in my chest. Doug was pacing behind me, casting nervous glances toward the trees. You don't know what that is. We should run. I know, I said, feeling breathless. But what if it holds answers? We need to know why they're after us. I flipped the box onto its side. As it opened with a creak, a gust of cold air rushed from within, swirling around us like the breath of something ancient. Inside, I spotted a collection of strange trinkets, rocks shaped like miniatures of the glowing trees, twisted metal that looked like it belonged to an age-long past, and tiny dolls made from what I could only guess was organic material. What is this? Doug breathed out, peering in over my shoulder. I picked up a small doll, its features warped and disfigured but unmistakably human. The sight made my stomach churn. I don't know, but they must have some connection to those figures. Then I noticed something that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. Tucked in a corner was a folded piece of parchment. I pulled it out, feeling the thrum of energy around me as I unfolded it. The writing was in a language I couldn't decipher, but the drawn illustrations were clear. They depicted a group of figures pale, hunched similar to the ones we had seen surrounding what looked like a fire. The flames twisted into the same glowing forms of the trees, and in the center, there was a larger figure, one that seemed to command the rest. Suddenly, the wailing floated through the air again, this time punctuated by a sense of urgency that seemed to grip my chest. I felt a pulse of fear wash over me, and I looked up. The figures stepped into the clearing, their dead eyes fixed on us, their chanting now rising to a deafening crescendo. I dropped the parchment back into the box. We need to go. Now. Just as I turned to run, the box tipped awkwardly, and everything inside spilled out. The dolls rolled into the moonlight, and for a moment, the figures hesitated, as if the sight entranced them. Come on! Doug shouted, snapping me back to reality. He was already taking off toward the trees. I followed, heart hammering. But as we plunged into the darkness, I could feel the weight of their gaze still on me. What had I just uncovered? The chanting echoed behind us, each note pulling me back, threatening to unravel everything I thought I understood. With each step, trepidation grew. Whatever we had disturbed would not let us leave easily. I couldn't shake the feeling of those figures bearing down on us. The forest closed in, branches tangling like skeletal fingers reaching for us. Doug's feet pounded against the ground, kicking up dirt and leaves as if we were racing against something more than just our fears. Where do we go? I gasped, my lungs burning. The cacophony of chants behind us reached a fever pitch, making the ground tremble beneath our feet. Just follow me. Doug yelled, veering left as if he knew the woods intimately. But I knew as well as he did that panic had taken over both of us. I could hardly think straight. We ran deeper into the darkness, the only sound my own ragged breathing and the rustling leaves. I stole a glance back. The figures weren't far behind. They moved with an unsettling grace, their bodies undulating in ways that shouldn't have been possible. I swallowed back bile. Then I saw it. A faint glow illuminated the trees ahead, a small clearing. Doug! I shouted, over there. We burst into the clearing, panting, the air full of a sudden stillness that felt wrong. It was as if we had stumbled into a different world. The light radiated from a circle of stones arranged around a dying fire, their edges glimmering with the same eerie phosphorescence as the box. What is this place? Doug whispered, his breath fogging in the chill. I stepped closer to the fire, my heart racing. The flames flickered, revealing more stones carefully arranged in strange patterns, symbols mirroring what we had seen on the box. Before I could breathe it in, I heard a rustle from the other side of the clearing. Did you hear that? Doug's eyes darted in the shadows. Yeah, I nodded, my voice barely above a whisper. The figures were fast approaching, and I felt trapped. We had nowhere to go. Suddenly, a sharp crack broke the stillness. A branch snapped loudly from somewhere in the tree line, sending a rustle through the underbrush. In that moment, my instincts kicked in, and I braced myself, anticipating whatever was to come. Out of the trees stepped a different figure, one that made my skin crawl in an unfamiliar way. This one was more human-like. Clad in tattered Victorian clothes, its expression twisted into something that danced somewhere between sympathy and malice. Why do you trespass here? It spoke. Its voice was soft yet resonated powerfully. You must pay for disturbing what is not to be disturbed. Please, I stammered, backing away. We didn't mean to. We were just exploring. There are rules, it continued, unfazed by my desperation. You've broken our laws. You must choose. You can leave the forest or stay and be one with us. Doug's gripping my arm cut into my thoughts like a knife. We're not staying, he hissed. My heart raced, not knowing what staying even meant. But something struck me. What if we can learn? What if we can understand why you're angry? The figures behind the voice shifted, their chanting morphing into a more melodic, chilling sound. I felt my pulse quicken. Were they listening? Your curiosity is commendable, the figure said, tilting its head, but knowledge comes at a cost. Just as its words settled in the air, the chanting picked up again. The figures surged forward, and my mind raced. I had no answers, no plan, but an inkling of the truth loomed over us like a dark cloud. I think we need to leave, now. Doug urged. Before I could even object, the ground below me began to tremble again, and I realized that we had crossed a line we couldn't see. Then, without warning, a flash of light burst from the fire, engulfing everything around us. The clearing faded, and I felt a gripping force pulling me back. I was losing my grasp on reality, and suddenly, I didn't know who I was running from anymore. I blinked. The glow disappeared as quickly as it had come, and I found myself standing in what felt like a dense fog. It pressed against my skin, making it hard to breathe. I could hardly see past my own hands, and the world around me felt off-kilter. The sounds of the forest were muted, and even my heartbeat felt muffled. Where are we? Doug's voice broke through the air, sounding distant. I turned, but I couldn't see him. Doug? I called, panic rising in my throat. Doug! No answer. I took a step forward into the fog, hoping to find him. My feet felt heavy, each step requiring an effort that left me breathless. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, trying to regain my bearings. When I opened them, the fog had thinned just enough to make out a dim figure in the distance. Doug! I shouted again, a mixture of relief and dread coursing through me. As I rushed towards him, the figure began to twist, contorting into an abominable shape that sent chills down my spine. I stumbled to a stop, horror rooting me in place. The mist reshaped the figure, manifesting into a woman with long, disheveled hair and sunken eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but the voice that came out was a guttural growl, a sound that felt suffocating. Why do you tread upon our home? She demanded. The unnatural cadence of her words sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through me. I'm looking for my friend. I gasped, shivering as her gaze pierced through me. Her expression morphed, the growl fading. Your kind does not belong. Leave while you can, for if you linger, you will lose yourself to the fog. I grasped the weight of her words, feeling the dread settle in my stomach. Is Doug here? A low, chilling laugh filled the space, making the fog swirl as if it were alive. He is close, but closer still are those wanting what you carry. The memory of the box surged back to me, and I instinctively reached for it. Panic twisted my gut. Would they really come for it? I started to back away, wanting to escape this haunting presence. Your heart races, she spat. You cannot outrun your fate. And with that, the fog thickened again, the air swirling and constricting around me. I forced myself to turn and run in a random direction, hoping to break free of whatever this was. As I plunged deeper into the mist, I realized I had no idea which way was out, my sense of direction shattered. In that instant, I felt another presence, something colder and more sinister. I turned to face it, but it was like trying to look at something out of the corner of my eye, always just beyond my focus. Then, suddenly, the fog began to lift, revealing a vast expanse of twisted trees and barren ground. Doug? Silence pressed against me, broken only by the sound of scattered footsteps behind me. My heart raced anew as I felt countless eyes watching from the shadows. I wasn't alone anymore. That was when I saw it, a flicker of light bobbing in the distance. It danced like a will-o'-the-wisp. Instinct kicked in. I took off toward it, aware that whatever held the forest's gaze would not be far behind. With every step, I thought of Doug. I had to find him. Little did I know, the answer I sought was laced with danger, and something unspeakable was waiting for us both just ahead. The light grew closer as I pushed through the underbrush, each step heavy with anticipation and dread. The air was thick, and the whispers I had once thought were behind me surged back, wrapping around me like icy tendrils. I could hear my name caught in the echo, faint and pleading. Doug! I shouted again, desperation clawing at my voice. But the light flickered before me, teasing and swaying like it was beckoning me deeper into shadows I didn't understand. Suddenly, the bushes parted, and I stumbled into a wider clearing. There, amidst a faintly glowing circle of symbols on the ground, stood Doug. He appeared disoriented, as if reaching for something just out of grasp. Doug! Thank God! I shouted, rushing toward him, the weight of my relief pushing through the enveloping fear. But as I neared, I noticed that he wasn't alone. Surrounding him were figures, those same pale, hunched forms, their chanting a droning chant, barely coherent. Let him go! I shouted, panic overtaking my senses. Doug's eyes were wide, filled with that same unsettling glimmer I had seen in the figures. He seemed entranced, swaying as if drawn by the rhythm of the whispers. No! I screamed, fighting against the fear that threatened to root me in place. I lunged toward him, heart pounding. The moment I grabbed his arm, the figures turned as one, their gaze shifting to me, their chanting escalating. Help us! The words echoed in the air, layered with desperation and fury. The light flickered ominously, and for a brief moment, I could see their faces twisted and sorrowful, yet full of longing. Why are you doing this? I yelled, but there was no response, only the rising wail that coursed through the clearing. For a heartbeat, I felt a connection with them, their anguish reaching into my very core. In that disorienting moment, I realized, they were desperate for something lost, and somehow, we were part of that desperation. But before I could fully grasp the implications, Doug blinked, shaking his head as if waking from a trance. What is happening? He muttered, looking around, confusion sharpening his features. Stay close! I cried, tugging him back. We needed to escape. Run! Doug shouted suddenly, yanking away just as the figures surged toward us, their presence oppressive. We scrambled away, the clearing slipping behind us as we plunged again into the trees, the chanting still echoing. Branches clawed at us as we raced, and I could feel the weight of the forest pushing back, the air growing thicker. What was that? Doug panted as we stumbled forward. Just keep going. I urged, my mind racing. If they wanted something from us, I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew we had to survive first. And then, in abrupt silence, everything stopped. The forest held its breath. We found ourselves standing in another clearing, but this one felt different. The silence seemed alive, swirling around us, pressing down with an eerie weight. What do we do now? Doug panted, glancing nervously around. I wanted to comfort him, but instead, my gaze caught on an object half buried at the center of the clearing. It was another box, much like the one we had found by the pond. But this one pulsed with an unsettling energy, beckoning us to approach. Do you think it could help? Doug suggested hesitantly, eyeing it warily. I don't know, I answered, feeling the dread coiling in my gut. But we have to try. As I approached, unease washed over me, echoing every warning I had received. The box wasn't just an object, it felt like a scar left by those who had come before us, a remnant of the pain buried beneath the forest floor. I knelt, reaching out as if drawn forward a moth to a flame. My fingers brushed against it, a surge of heat racing through me. At that moment, I could hear the echoes of hundreds of voices, lost souls trapped in time, begging to be released. My heart raced, each beat melding with their cries. Wait. Don't. Doug called out, panic lacing his voice. But it was too late. I felt the pull grow stronger, binding me to the light emanating from the box. Then. Everything shifted. The whispers crescendoed, swarming around me until I could no longer distinguish my thoughts from theirs. Images flooded my mind, visions of people lost to the woods, of rituals and desperation. I stumbled back, releasing the box as I was forced to confront the reality I had come to dread. We have to leave. I shouted over the rising cacophony, feeling the weight of the world press heavily upon my shoulders. But as I turned, I sensed a shift, figures emerging from the shadows, their forms twisting in the ethereal glow now enveloping us. They encircled the clearing, chanting louder, their eyes glimmering with an energy I had never felt before. Help us, the words wove through the air once more, and I understood now, it wasn't just a plea, it was an echo of their lost hopes, their melding anguish. They were waiting for a choice, but I had no idea what that meant. Doug, we have to make a decision. I yelled over the din, grasping his hands as the figures inched closer, an urgency crackling in the air. What choice? He shouted, his eyes wide in panic. I could feel the forest's energy shifting, its spirits waiting, restless. Somehow, we had become an integral part of what had long been left unresolved. They want an answer. They want to know if we'll help them. Help them do what? Doug cried, but his voice was drowned out by the relentless echoes. Panic surged once again, and in that moment, I couldn't grasp the enormity of what lay ahead. We were far from safe, but the questions burned brighter than the danger surrounding us. Did we have the power to help? Were we the key to their freedom, or had we simply stumbled into a world meant to remain forgotten? In the back of my mind, a whisper lingered, help us. It was hauntingly familiar, sealing the fate we had unwittingly forged in that forest, not knowing how the night would conclude. As the chanting reached a peak, everything around us began to swirl, each whisper rising to a cry, urging us to choose between staying or escaping, between salvation or torment. And for the first time, I was left to wonder, were the true spirits of the woods the figures we had seen, or the lost souls of those who had once wandered here? As the night loomed heavy, reality faded into a haze, leaving me stranded between the realms of the living and the whispers of the past.